you guys get an email from Shanna? Yeah. McDonald, yeah. You ready? Welcome everybody to our city council meeting tonight. The council chamber is open at 100% capacity. Today is Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. Invocation to be given by Police Chaplain Kathleen Lawler, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Mayor Palomar, City Council members. This morning I was at the Fresno Clovis prayer breakfast, and it was an incredible experience for the leaders, praying for the other leaders, for their citizens, and for their communities. And now it's really a privilege to represent our faith community, to be praying for you too. So let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, it is an honor to gather here tonight. And I ask for your wisdom, your guidance, and your provision for our city council members this evening as they discuss items that will result in the good for our community. Lord, guide their thoughts and their decisions, their words. Father, and I just thank you for the many gifts and talents that you have given them in helping them lead our community. And Lord, as they are strong, effective individuals, Lord, may they be stronger together as they serve our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Kathleen. Got to call this meeting to order tonight. Can I please get a roll call?
Councilmember Silva? Councilmember Purcell Jr.?
Here.
Councilmember North? Here. Councilmember Smith? Here. Mayor Palomar?
Here. Next, we approve the agenda. Action by council to approve the agenda or make modifications, items that can be added to the agenda is constrained by state law. Can I get a motion to approve?
I would like to make an adjustment.
Okay.
In motion. I would adjust 6.3, the solar options, regular calendar item, be moved up into the 6.1 spot. And outside of that, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion approved. We'll move 6.1 up. Next, we have presentations. Tonight, we don't have any presentations. Next, we have public comment. This is time for any citizen to come forward and address the city council on any issue within its jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Do we have anybody in the chamber tonight that would like to speak on public comment?
Come on up.
Yeah, come on up. Speak. Please state your name and if you're a resident of Kingsburg.
I'm not. I'm a resident of Hanford, 25 years. I'm
Your name?
Mark Prater,
Thank you.
and I just want to introduce myself to everybody. I'm a publisher, and we got a demand from clients for a paper in Selma and Kingsburg. So this was the first one, which was delivered door to door to about 4,000 homes, and we're going to do one in March that's going to be mailed out to several thousand homes, probably every 6 weeks. And then in between, we have a big website, meaning a lot of news on there, and in between we'll have a lot of stories of the different towns in the valley, including Kingsburg, as you know, as the importance comes up. And you know, I've been a journalist for 40 years. As I said, I lived here 25 years. We have a paper in Visalia, Hanford, and Lemoore, and we're going to do one in Dinuba and Reedley, the same kind of format as this. And then we've got a kind of a sports publication that's sold pretty much throughout the state. So, I'll do my best. Mike knows me. He's known me for a long time. Sometimes we've had run-ins. I feel very strongly about public information and the State Records Act and the public. The way I see my job is to be a proxy for the public. In other words, what do they need to know to understand their city and what's going on? And it's not always controversial. Sometimes it is. It's the way it is. You guys are all experienced, and the dynamic between the press and politicians. But I really do try to be as fair as I can, to try to cover both sides, to try to give pros and cons on issues. I don't have any agenda, but I am looking for good articles. So that's basically it. So, and I will mail, since I don't know if you're on the mailing list, meaning the routes, because we cover certain parts of the city, I'll just mail you all a copy every time we come out with one. That's it. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll close public comment. Next, we have consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are to be placed on consent calendar. They will be considered as one item and voted upon in one vote unless individual consideration is requested. Each vote in favor of consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Approval of consent calendar items include recital readings, ordinances by titles only, and adoption of recommended action contained in staff reports. Tonight we have on consent calendar 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. Any council members want to pull any of those
I have
items?
a question on 5.4.
5.4, okay. So any others? Anybody from the public want to pull a consent calendar item? No, okay, so can I get a motion to approve 5.1 through 3 and then?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so what,
I just had one question on 5.4. I don't know if you can go to the papers where they had to talk to all the surrounding businesses, but I just noticed one wasn't signed, and I just wanted to make sure that was taken care of because it was the fire department. Right there, they put a note on it, but it wasn't signed. I just wanted to make sure that they were cleared through the fire department before.
Adam on that? Gonna answer for that, Adam?
Yes, that's me. So good evening, council members. The applicant went to the fire department for this for the event, and we felt because it's a city department, or the fire department felt because it's a city department, they'd rather see them get consent from all the other ones, and then they'd proceed afterwards.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve 5.4.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Next, we have a regular calendar, and we moved up 6.3 for the first item this evening. Solar options. Wells 13 and 16, Police Department and Public Works Yard. Staff report by Daniel Galvez. Report by Daniel Galvez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As mentioned, we're here today to discuss some solar options. Just to kind of give a quick background on it. So the city continuously has looked for ways to become more energy efficient. We've gone through a couple different projects to make some slight improvements to both our thermostats, our water heaters, our operations at the pool. But one of the big items, or the big ticket items that we've also looked at is solar. And so we've had the opportunity to work with SiteLogic, who are here today and actually have a presentation for you guys in regards to some of the locations that we're looking to consider for solar. So we do have a few constraints when discussing solar, one of them being space. So some of our primary or most of our well sites, which are some of our biggest users of electrical energy, are pretty landlocked, so we don't control the land next to it, or the sites are actually too small to put an array that will supplement the usage at the well. And so we came up with a couple locations and a couple that had kind of previously been discussed. Well 13, which is located on 10th in Winter. Well 13, which is on 10th in Winter, Well 16, which is in the Erling Park Basin, the police department, and then most recently the Public Works Yard. So, like I said, the SiteLogic has a presentation that has a little bit more detail on those locations, but kind of wanted to start off that, part of the reason of kind of us pushing this fairly quickly, we did have Finance Committee kind of receive a similar presentation regarding this issue on Monday to discuss it, is because there is a deadline that's looming in regards to NEM 2.0 and 3.0. And like I said, SiteLogic can kind of give you a little bit more details, but there is a change in the rate structure of how you get paid for some of the energy that you produce with your solar panels. And so that deadline's looming. It's April 14th, and in order to have enough time to put all that together, we are seeking council approval to accept a letter of acceptance with them. So that letter of acceptance is essentially not saying that we are going to build anything. It's essentially that we are going to continue on with them, and if we do decide to build, there is a fee that's incorporated with them. And if we don't build anything, then we are going to owe SiteLogic some money for their time and expertise on putting these projects together. But if we decide to move with even one of the projects, their fee gets incorporated into that project. So I just kind of want to make that clear today, is that we're not accepting any of the projects today. It's just the letter of agreement that we're discussing. And even the concepts of the locations, they're in the really preliminary stages. Like I said, we have received some feedback from local residents at Erling Park regarding the location of and the orientation of solar panels, and it is something that staff has been cognizant about. And to be honest, it was something that was kind of prohibitive at the beginning. But given that we don't have very much time left in terms of taking advantage of NEM 2.0, like I said, we thought that it was kind of our duty to kind of bring that issue forward to council and to the Finance Committee to at least be discussed with you guys. So like I mentioned, at this time I can kind of introduce Jessica Ritter so that she can go through the presentation.
Perfect, thank you. Hello, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jessica Ritter. I'm with SiteLogic, and with me today is Dr. Eddie Jordan. He is our Vice President of Project Development. So together we should be able to answer any questions that you guys have regarding this project, keeping in mind that we're very much in the preliminary stages of this program with the City of Kingsburg. So I have a PowerPoint here. It's pretty short. I'll just run right through it. That way we can get time to ask any questions. Just going to run through a few things: who we are, what do we do, why are we here, and the project that we have proposed for you guys. So SiteLogic is a national energy services company. We're a very large energy services company. We do everything from lighting, HVAC, solar, battery storage, microgrid projects. Anything really energy related is what we focus on, and we have a lot of customers throughout the nation, but mainly a majority of our customers are right here in California, and the reason for that is because we pay really high energy rates here in California, higher than anywhere in the nation. And California is also a very solar-friendly state. Well, it was until PG&E decided to change some rules. Daniel mentioned that, and we'll get into that a little bit further. Just a few of the projects we've worked on in the area here. So our program overview, we're gonna discuss this project and how it has a very cumulative positive cash flow. We are a design build firm, so we both do the engineering and the construction of these projects, and we also help find the funding for you and apply for the funding on behalf of the city. We utilize California Government Code 4217 to design and build these projects, so it's not a typical design, bid, build process that you may be used to. With energy projects, you're allowed to engage one company to do both the design and the construction of these projects. And of course, we provide a guarantee of the performance of the arrays that we install. So first site that we're going to look at here, and this is probably the most controversial site of all, it's Erling Park, well site 16. So this is a very large array here. And mind you, the array doesn't have to go in this location. It could go anywhere in this park, but this is a carport structure, so it's kind of like you would see in the parking lot. It's raised up off the ground. It's got steel structures. And we've got a lot of solar panels on here, about 550 solar panels roughly. This is about $85,000 worth of savings to the city with just this array. So it is an important piece of this solar project, but we understand that there will be some considerations when it comes to the design and the look of this array, because we understand that this is a very beautiful neighborhood, and so we definitely don't want to take away from that aesthetic, but just know that this is the rough design here, and that array could be moved around somewhat.
Before we go on to the next slide,
Sure.
you said that's an $85,000 savings to
Correct.
the city?
Yes.
What did you mean by that specifically? Where does
So-
that $85,000 savings come and over what duration?
Good question. Yeah, so it's $85,000 per year savings off of your utility bills as a result of this solar array, because you're offsetting all this usage at well site 16, and that's one of your workhorse wells. So it does generate a lot of energy and a lot of cost to the city. So we're reducing the city's cost by $85,000 at just this site alone. So it's a very important site when we're looking at all four sites. This one is a very important one, but it's also the one that's probably going to have the most discussion around it. These are just some examples of what those carports can look like, and mind you, these are pretty basic. I've been at other cities and counties that have had beautiful ornamentation along those steel structures, painted the columns all different types of colors. They don't have to be as tall as this, so we're kind of lucky that we're in a park setting. If we were in a parking lot, we would be required to have a height on the low end of 13 feet 8 inches, and that's for access for fire trucks and emergency vehicles. But in a park, we don't have to meet those requirements, so we could make it shorter, taller. We had a good discussion during the Finance Committee meeting about that, and how there's a little bit of a slope there at the edge of the park. So if we are able to get our calculations just right, we may be able to reduce or minimize the view from the homeowner's front doors and windows there along that back street. So again, rough design here is what we're looking at, but structures come in all shapes and sizes. This is the police department. That is also a carport structure, and it is offsetting a significant amount of energy at the police department as well. Again, not as large, but pretty good design, provides shade. Would have to remove a few trees though, just FYI. Well site 13, this is a ground-mounted solar array, so we're really constrained with space in this area. You can see the fencing around that well site. So this is about the best we could do in that area. Now in the Finance Committee meeting, we did discuss potentially making that a carport structure. We could add a few more panels there if we do have a raised structure, but there is added cost when we do a carport structure. Steel is the most expensive part of that project. So the less steel that we need, the better for the city. And here at the Public Works Yard. So this was the most recent site that Daniel had asked us to design, and really the usage at Public Works right now is rather small, but Daniel did mention to us that the city is going to need to grow your EV fleet and that those vehicles are going to have to charge somewhere. This would be the location that they would charge. So once you have these EV vehicles charging, you're looking at roughly 200,000 kilowatt hours a year additional usage and cost to the city. So that's significant. So we designed this array to be able to offset that usage, that additional usage that you will have as a result of those EV vehicles charging there every day. And we estimated about 20 vehicles per Daniel's request. So in the meantime, we know that you'll be growing that EV fleet over some years. In the meantime, what we're able to do with all this additional power that we're producing at this array is use that additional power to offset other meters throughout the city, like some of your other well sites that are very landlocked and not able to build any solar nearby. So we'll use that excess power, offset other meters until your EV fleet grows, and then we can change those percentages that are allocated to this site through PG&E once or twice a year. So we'll be in lockstep with you as you grow your fleet. We'll allocate more percentage to this site, less to others, and so on and so forth.
A question on that one.
Sure.
Is it possible to offset well site 16 from that, or is it too far away?
We would, no. So that's not enough. So the program that we use through PG&E that allows us to offset meters off-site is the RES BCT program, RESPECT for short. The RESPECT program is great because it's there, but it's not as ideal as if you were offsetting your usage directly on site. So when you have a solar array that's offsetting usage directly on site, like here at well 16, you're getting 100% value of that solar that's being produced. Under the RESPECT program, you get less than half that value. So it's ideal to offset usage directly on site, but some customers don't have that opportunity. So when they don't, the RESPECT program is very useful. So yeah, to answer your question, if we built enough solar here, we could make a dent in well 16, but not nearly an $85,000 dent like we are at the park. Okay. So these are your projected program financials here. So the estimated project value is around $3.9 million. It has a 30-year net project savings of 11.6. First year annual utility savings is over $200,000. And you will be getting a direct cash payment back from the federal government through the Inflation Reduction Act of roughly $1.1 million. That money comes in after your project has completed construction. So just know, you won't get that money immediately. Once your construction is completed, you'll be eligible for that amount.
It's approximately how long? A year?
Roughly, yeah,
I
about
know
a
we
year.
talked about that, the finance committee, but if we're going to carry that $1.1 million debt, it's going to be approximately for a year.
Correct, yep. Also included in our project costs is our operation and maintenance agreement. So in order for the city to take advantage of our guarantee that we're going to guarantee that our solar arrays that we build are going to produce what we say they're going to produce. And that production is going to translate into dollars saved for the city. But in order for the city to receive that guarantee, we need to be the ones to make sure that those solar arrays are performing at peak performance. So we have an operation and maintenance service built in. In addition to that operation and maintenance service, we have an energy management services program. That cost is also baked in, and it provides the city with a really unique dashboard. So this is one page from the dashboard that we have, but essentially our dashboards could monitor every single meter at the city, whether it's an electric meter or a water meter. And what this does is it allows you, and it also allows the ratepayers, the taxpayers, to know how well these solar arrays are producing, right? Are they actually saving what we say they're going to save? And then also, what is the historical cost per site at the city? So we'll go back as many years as PG&E will give us data. And so it's nice to have so you can track what your usage has been at the site, what the cost has been at each site, and then also what the savings from your solar arrays are. So it's a good visual tool to use. And they're very customizable, so we can make the dashboards look pretty much however you want with whatever information is important to you. Okay, this is the second to the last slide here. This is our roadmap to efficiency. So as you can see, there's a lot of steps to get from the first concept meeting, the first time I sat down with Daniel and had a conversation, to where we are now. That's the star there, presentation of measures. And then we still have a long way to go to get to a place where we're ready to sign some sort of contract and build the project. So there's a lot that goes into designing and building projects of this nature, but just to give you an idea, this is where we're at in the process. And that's it. We're available to answer any questions that you may have.
Can you talk about the service agreement cost and what that covers and how long that's for?
Yeah, actually, you know what, Eddie, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So the operation and maintenance agreement, or the service cost, includes 24/7 monitoring, a cloud-based platform like you saw there with the data that you can see, annual inspections and maintenance on the systems, cleaning of the panels, and a performance guarantee. Cost, I don't remember off the top of
For
my head.
all 4 sites, it's $20,000 a year.
$20,000 a
So
year.
it's roughly $5,000 per site.
Do you have a total for the, I know you have an $11 million projected value back to the city. What's the cost with that agreement over 30 years? How much would we be paying towards that? I had the number of financing, but I think we added.
Sure, you're talking about over 30 years, your cost for us to provide the O&M?
Yes.
So over 30 years, it looks like
Is that 900?
$951,508 over 30 years. That's your total.
But that's already taken into account that net number of 11 million. We already reduced it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's in the gross savings from your project are paying for the O&M costs over the life of the project. So it's not coming out of the city's general fund above and beyond what your solar project will be saving you.
Yeah, I just wanted that updated number with
Okay.
the additional.
Sure.
Questions from council? Any questions?
I'd love to hear from the public,
Yeah.
Okay,
I think we're all
and
gonna have
then we'll
lots
probably have a lot more questions.
Great.
all right.
Sure.
Also, thank you very much. I know we really got into the weeds at the finance committee meeting.
It's all right.
You've been incredibly patient with us, so thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, we're gonna have public comment on this item. Anybody want to come up and speak on this agenda item? Please come up, state your name, and if you're a resident of Kingsburg.
My name is Josh Meddy. I live right adjacent to Erling Park. Sorry, I'm not dressed as nicely as maybe I should be. I just learned about this. So it's, that's really helpful, Jessica. I had some questions about it. So 546 panels, how big is that? How big is that structure?
I believe, you know what, Charlie, are you on the line?
It's 275 by 50 for the Erling Park. Right. 275 feet.
Thank you.
But he's got it right. That's what we discussed at the finance committee meeting.
Thank you.
It's 275. So that's like 100 yards, is that right?
Ball field?
It's a football field in length, 50 feet across.
That's huge.
It's gigantic.
That's huge. Okay. So I guess, so this is really helpful to understand what it saves $85,000 a year. That's awesome. Why is it there? Why can't you, is all that just for well 16?
Yes.
That's how much well 16 produces. Okay.
And yes.
And then why can't we build, I understood the question was we could build over like at well 613, overbuild there, overbuild like on the public, just, what is it, public works area? But how does that not work?
You can, but here on site, you're getting pretty close to full credit for the energy based off the retail rates. Any other site, you're getting about half that, a little less than half that much credit. So, for
Got it.
example, if you're paying 18 cents a kilowatt hour here, you're going to get about 17 or 16 cents kilowatt hour credit back.
Got
If
it.
you build it here, if you go build it at the other site, it's going to be 8 cents or 9 cents kilowatt hour.
Okay, that's really helpful. So then what we're looking at is trying to, if we were to overbuild somewhere else, first of all, this is a bad location. It really is. I mean, just, you're taking a beautiful park. I'm just taking a beautiful park, putting it in front of people's front doors. Just doesn't make, that's not logically that they're walking out and seeing that in the front doors. Kids play under that. I mean, it's, even in that, on that place, even within that park, that's not in the best location if we had to do it out of the park. But now we're going from possibly an $85,000 savings down to a $45,000 savings if we were to overbuild someplace else. It just seems like I like the name Site Logic. I like that, but that site is not a logical place for it.
It was difficult for us too, and believe me, we moved that around several times with Daniel. We even considered utilizing that ponding basin just to the right. You can see where there's just a little bit of water in there, and putting all ground mount solar arrays.
Oh, yeah.
However, it would actually be maybe even a little bit more visible. And ground mount solar arrays, they don't look pretty. It's almost impossible to make them look nice. So you will see it if you're looking down into the park, that ground mounted array, you would still see it. And you would also see a lot of reflection off those panels because they're so low in relation to where you would be standing if you were, say, up above around the edge of the park. We also considered moving it down closer to the well site in that other fenced-off area down at the bottom. But again, you're still looking at it somewhere.
Right. I guess the logic behind that is at least it's not people's front doors and it's hidden behind people's backyards. But even then, it just doesn't seem like we want to destroy one of our green spaces that is valuable anyways, right? That's valuable, and putting something like that there I like saving money for sure, but going 85,000, if we still could save 45,000 or something, that seems like a logical move also. So, anyways, I mean,
It doesn't necessarily have to be that full length either. It can be broken up into 2 or even 3 different ones, and you can put areas where you put picnic tables. We've done that at quite a few sites. Really, we're just trying to give you a magnitude of what needs to be there to offset the load at that site, but we can work with the city on kind of putting something more aesthetically pleasing together.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a solar array. You know, we can paint the columns and put iron ornamentation and grapevines hanging down and steelwork and make it look as beautiful as possible, but at the end of the day, it's still a solar shade structure.
Yeah.
And it does provide
It's still a car
shade.
part, yeah.
It's still, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it
But-
provides a little bit of shade. You could put benches under it, but it's still a solar shade structure. You know, so what's that saying? You can put lipstick on a pig or
Yeah,
something, but it's
yeah,
still a pig.
still a pig. Yeah,
Um,
I understand that.
Yeah, so it's a tough choice.
Okay. That's my 2 cents, guys. I don't think that's a real logical site for that.
I have a question for you
Sure.
before you sit down. I'm probably going to ask this of everybody that comes and speaks. So you're opposed to it at Wellside 16. Would you be opposed to looking at a redesign of something else there, even if it's a reduction of panels, a different design with more community input? Is this something you would be up to hearing, or is it just a flat-out no at Erling Park?
I'd be open to hearing something different. One of the things that they said just now, which sounded interesting to me, is could you have smaller ones spread out so it doesn't look like one, so it doesn't look like Fresno State, the parking lot at Fresno State, right? So I kind of like I mean, it was an interesting point. Maybe you did, I don't know if that's huge, but maybe you did picnic areas and they were spread out. Picnic areas,
Something you'd be open
like 10 picnic areas or 20,
Like shaded picnic tables.
Like shaded picnic tables are the kind of like we have at Memorial Park where it's shaded and it has a picnic table. That's kind of interesting.
Very doable. Very doable.
Or like right now, a boating dock that's covered since it's all flooded.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Yeah.
We've done some of those.
So,
Mr. Muddy, I have a question for you. That area, I know we're in a rainy season right
Yeah.
now, but is it normally used for any practices for youth sports right
all
now?
the time. Yeah, kids are using it for soccer and
So-
baseball.
Being up above would be an issue right there. Having those 13
Oh.
feet off the ground would impact.
Well, if it's
playing soccer or
smack dab in the middle, yeah, but they don't, if it's against the fences, no. Or, yeah. Or, and the thing is, that area, I don't want to do this to any of my neighbors, but even, I mean, that's where baseballs are going to be hit there if you're talking about 13 feet is not going to change anything for a baseball field or a soccer field. It's not going to change it. It's going to run. They're going to get hit. They might get baseball's going to probably break it. I haven't thought about that. Go on top and it's going to break the panel, right? I mean, I don't suppose, right?
Could happen, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I think it's used quite a bit.
a lot. Yeah. Which is wonderful. We like those kid sounds. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Josh.
I remember that's why we didn't do the dog park there.
That's right.
Come on up and state your name and if you're a resident.
This is embarrassing. Hi, my name is Kelly Rosales. I actually live directly across from the solar panel proposal. A couple of things. Yes, baseball. Yes, soccer. Yes, golfing. I've seen kids out there doing golf. Simple things as much as, although we try to prevent it, canoeing on our new lake. This is a heavily used park, and when we moved here and when we chose this specific location, it was with the understanding that it would be a neighborhood park where the children could play. We've fought dog parks, we've fought, we've just basically fought anything that isn't a neighborhood park, specifically bathrooms, any kind of structure that takes away from the green space and what it provides for the children in the neighborhood. That specifically where that is is directly, if I look out my kitchen window or my, my living room window, it's right in front. And because of the height, it is directly in front of us. Talking about, I'm the one that walked around to every single neighbor. Really would have appreciated maybe a little message out to the neighborhood. This is what's being considered. I feel very fortunate that we found out at the last minute, but to find out on a Saturday that this magnitude of a project was being considered, to have to go out and walk the field, walk around the neighborhood and leave flyers and things. Number one, if we were going to be involved in some of the communication, I sure would like it to see a lot better communication. Again, just way too big, way too obtrusive, definitely going to affect our property values, but more than anything, the other places that you guys listed that are being considered, the other places are very industrial. This is in the middle of a park, and it's not just any park, it's a park that's being used. So yes, let's save money, let's do whatever we can because we all could use that. But I particularly have an issue with it because I have yet to put solar panels on my house because I can't stand the way they look when I drive up into the driveway. So now they're going to be right out front my door. So I would just say, please reconsider this. Let's figure out a better way. Let's find out a better location, a more industrial location. Okay?
Same question for you. Would you be opposed to, if we were to look at redesigning things there, or is it just an absolute hard no from you from the park?
Well, when you look at things like park benches and that's something that we've kind of opposed, something we've kind of put apart because we don't want this to be a place where people come to. It's a neighborhood park. So when you start putting out park benches and those kind of things, even covered, you're creating an atmosphere where people come into the area as opposed to it being for the neighborhood, which wouldn't really have any use for that type of thing. On the other hand, progress has to be made, money has to be saved. So I would say, although I'd be very reluctant, anything is up to discussion.
So we've obviously had long discussions about this prior to this meeting. One of the things when we were at your house looking at exactly where it was going to be, I think that's kind of when we determined where the height might be. 13 feet above seems like it's a lot.
Right.
But that's 13 feet from the bottom of the basin, which puts those panels and carport about, what did we figure, about 5 feet above street level probably.
Right.
So
right.
direct eyesight from every window you have.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to point that out because 13 feet does seem like it's fine, you can just see right through it, but 13 feet from the bottom of the basin,
it's right.
Your husband pointed out to me that that's where it would be. It's going to be a complete block for you.
Yeah, and more than anything, it's industrial. A park's not industrial. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
One more thing. It's 5 feet off the ground. Oh, it's 5 feet off the top.
It's going to, that statement was based on 13 feet and assuming that it's about 8 feet to the bottom of where it's going to actually be started. Because the basin goes down so far that if you're 13 feet above what would be ground level from the bottom of the structure, it's really only going to be about 5 or 6 feet above what would be street level and where your homes are.
That basically hits right at the eye line.
Anyone else from the public want to comment on this agenda item?
I know it's hard.
Just please state your name, please.
Lydia Kress. I'm Kelly's neighbor, also live right in front. Actually, we moved from a block away. We lived on Bergeron Court, and we bought this house because I was tired of living in a cul-de-sac. I wanted something open, and we moved there. Love the view of the park. Love, kids playing, watching them play. It's out of the view is out of our kitchen area, and another view out of our dining area. I hate this thought being in that park. There's so much nice things to see right now. fathers, sons, soccer practice of kids to look out and just see panels. I'm very disappointed. Again, the thought of it being there and no advance notice. So if it wouldn't have been for Kelly, we had no idea what was going on. We need to have more open what's being thought about. And I'm sure that would be for any resident living anywhere. That's it.
Emma, I have the same question for you. Would you be open to looking at possible redesigns with community input, or would you just be a hard pass on any solar in the park?
Hard pass again. We moved from one location a block and a half away because of this view. Now the city is going to save $85,000. Would I buy this house with that view in front of it? Absolutely not. If the city is going to save $85,000, how much potential depreciation of our homes will be with that? 85,000, 100,000? Most likely. I know I wouldn't buy if those panels were there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Anyone else want to speak on public comment on this item? Okay. Council discussion.
I had a couple more questions pertaining to the maintenance and the service. So now that we brought up a few like baseball scenarios, if panels are damaged, is that part of the maintenance? You replace those and get the system back working? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, we'll replace panels as needed, but that's not necessarily covered in our agreement. It'll be an adder, whether it's insurance or not. I didn't realize that baseball was on this field. And I appreciate all the comments from the public in regards, because we're really at the concept stage right now. So it's good to get all these comments out before you get closer to the actual engineering and design. But no, that is not covered. So if there is baseballs there, we would definitely have to find, or baseball fields.
It would be in, yeah.
Can you say what is going to be covered, what isn't going to be covered?
Yeah.
I know we talked about that with wildfires. We talked about it with power outages. And I think all of those things are important when you're talking about $950,000 agreement.
Yeah, so theft and damage and storms and things like that, things that are generally covered by insurances, no, that's not covered in our agreement. It's generally covered by an insurance.
Right.
For panels that have manufacturer's defects or that failed because of our workmanship, 100% covered. So you've all seen the warranty items when you buy a fridge, right? You know, it's the same list, and we actually can provide you a copy of what that looks like, of what's included and what's excluded, so it's very clear.
Yeah, but just like any other piece of equipment that the city owns, if it's vandalized or damaged, it would be covered under your insurance policy. And then, of course, we would be the ones to help with that process and then be the ones to come in and repair or replace it. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often?
As often as needed. So it depends on the season.
Yeah.
It depends. Almond shaking season, right? I live in a very rural area, about 20 minutes from here. So, yeah, when they shake the trees, everything's covered in dust, and my panels are covered in this much dust. So, and then I also just want to reiterate to the community, too, that we are in very preliminary conceptual stage. So today was not to sign a contract to move forward with the build of this project. And I can say that your council and Public Works Director were very much wanting to have community discussions. Once we get past this stage is really just to allow us to submit an interconnection application for this site. Because if we don't do that before April 13th or April 14th, then building solar basically anywhere in the city is not going to pencil out financially. So this was the first stage in like getting us to allow us to get an interconnection application submitted for this site and the 3 other sites. But before there was any construction or groundbreaking, there was going to be several community meetings, and they made that very clear to us, and so did Daniel. So I just want you guys to know that This was not going to be done without the permission of the community, especially in this area. So I just want to make that very clear. As Eddie mentioned, we could break this up into multiple pieces, shaded areas, bring it down to the further basin, perhaps a ground-mounted array in that other basin that fills up with water, but it would require input from the community. I am a homeowner too. If something monstrosity was built by my property, I would be very upset because property value means everything. Sometimes that's people's largest asset, and so we understand that completely. And so does your council. So I just wanted to reiterate that to you guys. And we did run a cash flow scenario with the reduction of, or the removal of well 16 completely from the project. And the project still pencils out very well. There's still significant savings, not like it is with with well 16 included, but it is a significant savings still to the city. So there you go. So you can see net savings, you're still doing really well in that those two blue columns there. Those are the net savings in your pocket after the debt service is paid. To the city, you're still saving $6.7 million over the life of the project. And if you scroll up on that cash flow, you'll see that you're cash flow positive, cumulatively every single year all the way down. So the city's never pulling out of their general fund to make any loan payments. And you're still receiving about $700,000 back from the federal government, and that's significant as well. So even if we remove well 16 altogether, you still have a viable project with your 3 other sites. And then we would also look into seeing, if we could build additional solar at Public Works to help offset well 16 a little bit. So there's a lot of things we can do past this conceptual phase. But yeah, I just want the council to be able to consider that.
What was the total cost without well 16?
Scroll all the way down. Go all the way up. No, I'm sorry, other way. Yeah, all the way down to the inputs. There we go. So it's that first. It's 2.280560. That's if you scroll over to the side, they can read those. That's without well 16. Yeah.
I know this came up in Finance Committee, but the maximum that we can use this program for is $3 million flat, correct? So going over it, we're just going to have to eat that cost directly.
Correct, or get an additional funding source, right? A tax-exempt lease or some other sort of bank funding in the meantime. So this is how to read the cash flow here. So you see that base project cost number at the very top, that 2.280, that's the cost to build the project, right? That's the construction cost. Then we always want to have contingency in there in case any unforeseen circumstances come up. We have $114,000 or 5% of the total project cost baked in there. Under the eco loan, you would only be able to finance $2.1 million. The reason for that is because the CEC requires that any project that's funded under that program must meet a 17-year payback requirement. So it's the cost of the project divided by the savings. If you don't get 17 or you're over 17, we have to take out some of that project cost and fund it elsewhere. That's why you'll see down where it says additional loan amount. That's the delta that can't be funded under the eco loan plus the contingency. So that's all that $294,000. That's the additional money that the city would need to have or take a loan out of for the time. So if you scroll back up and look at that IRA incentive, back up to the cash flow, a year after the project's constructed, scroll over to the side a little bit. No, yep, right there, that first green column. A year after the project's completed construction, you're getting $700,000 back from the federal government. So you're basically having a bridge of that $294,000. You have to hold that for a year and a half-ish. Then the feds are going to give you money back and you could pay yourselves back. So that's how, you could move the money around, so to speak. But the project still pencils very well, even without well 16. But if you scroll back down to that gross project, the calculated energy savings, so your gross project savings, you're going from $209,000 savings a year down to $123,000 a year. So it's a significant loss in savings. And we can do our best to try to make up for that somehow by adding additional solar at Public Works, which is basically the only site where we have a little more room to build anything, and try to get that number up. But that's basically where we're at here.
Can I ask a question? Is the industrial park out there not an option?
So are there any city-owned meters in that area, Daniel? So that's a problem. So when we're offsetting usage at the city, we need to be able to interconnect to a city-owned meter. And once we're interconnected to that meter, we can use that RESPEC program that I mentioned before to offset meters elsewhere. But we have to first have a meter at that location, wherever we build. So that, to drop a meter?
Oh, well, you have to own the land, and there's a lot of purchase of. Is there property that city owns?
So this came up at finance, the exact same question. Why don't we just go put a meter where we own a bunch of land and then pump it all into that meter? And it's going to be because the NEM savings is going to change after this. If we put, let's just say that we go put one in the new dog park, and we don't really put anything other than a meter and a panel, and then we're like, okay, now that we're developing everything, let's put another 500 panels at the dog park. It's not going to help us because we're still going to hit the wrong NEM program.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, the NEM program is both meter specific and time specific.
Right.
Because that was one of the things we were trying to vet out in finance was, can we just throw a meter up somewhere and then we'll build it later? And it's just the time constraints won't allow it because it's all meter specific. We want to do that too. That's it's a great idea. They just won't let us do it.
I have a question. Avenue 396, where we built the new parking lot, don't we have a well out there? Like, is that an option? Because there's already a parking lot where you could have the raised solar panels. That's over near that side of the town. I do know that's on county side. I don't know if that.
Yeah, we don't have a well. We have a treatment facility, and so we've talked about that a little bit internally as well. And so that could be another option to offset usage at that treatment facility. I mean, you kind of see the differences between offsetting at the actual meter versus, overbuilding at another location and just, what that cost is. I mean, that's kind of, as Daniel alluded to earlier, it's just we don't own a bunch of land somewhere, unfortunately. If you go out to SKF, they have a huge mounted, ground-mounted solar array because they just have huge amounts of property, right? So that's been a little bit of the challenge for any of the locations that we look at.
But that could be an option?
It could be another option probably it would probably offset that meter because it's the treatment facility there because it would tie into the meter that's at that treatment facility.
And just kind of another option. Another piece of information here is the way that the water system works. It's all interlooped, interconnected. So where you're getting the water from is not necessarily the location, but well 16 is our primary well. When that well is not functioning, it probably takes like 2 or 3 wells to make up the production for that one well. I don't know if it's just the usage in that part of town, but that well, like I said, is our primary well that almost essentially runs 24 hours. So it is on a VFD, which varies the amount of water being pumped. Currently at well 12, it's not a VFD. It's either on or it's off. So if it's overproducing, then it turns off. That's well 12, yeah. So that's what feeds GAC Site 12. Well 13 is a VFD, yes.
So I have a question about that. So with well 13 having the VFD, if we increase the panel size at well 13, which we have as an option, make that a carport type setting to absolutely maximize, put as many panels as we can, triple the amount if we have to, that'll give us significantly more panels. Up to let's just say 400 panels there if we were really to capitalize everything. And that is a well site. So with the closed loop system, and I'm sorry, I'm not an engineer, but
neither am I.
Can we turn down the pump at Erling, turn up the pump at well 13 with it being a closed loop system?
So right now we've kind of run some of those. We've kind of run into some of those issues. Well 13 is having some issues, so we haven't ran it as much. One of the things that water department kind of had the same concern of how do we kind of mitigate in case 16 goes down or there's an issue. And like I said, it's taken well 9, 10, and 14 to kind of match the production at 16. So it's not just the volume, but it's also the pressure. So the way that it's all kind of interconnected, like I said, there's an algorithm in the back end that tells it, hey, it's time for you to turn on based on whatever the demand is in the city. And like I said, it varies. It's fluid. It just varies on the time of day, the time of year of how much that well runs. But like I said, the ultimate goal would be, ideal would be to kind of be able to cycle through all of the well sites. It just doesn't work out exactly that way. Like I said, we've tried to kind of mess with some of the programming on them to try to get some of the usage down at 16. Like I said, we can take it down for a couple hours in the morning, but once you kind of get into the middle part of the day or the afternoon, like we really need 16. So. I mean, it turns on. I mean, it just varies on the demand. That's what basically kind of regulates how high that well's running.
So, for the council to consider, the deadline for April 14th is for us to submit the interconnection applications for whatever meters that the city may want to build solar at in the next 3 years, right? So if there are considerations for another site where that, like that treatment site, water treatment site, and Daniel, I think we looked at that before even the parking lot went in. There's not a lot of space, but there's some. Is it kind of in front of some grapevines? Yes, okay, that's the spot I'm thinking of. It was low because it just treats the water. So you're correct, you're not pumping
water.
Yeah, so well site 12 is our least used well site currently right now. And like I said, part of that is because it doesn't have a VFD, but also the demand on that side of town is not close to any of the other locations. I mean, now with Hash there, it may be a little bit different, but even then it's not what it is in other sections of town. So.
Right, so, but there's a meter there. Okay, so we could use that RESPEC program. We could potentially build solar at that location, try to offset as much usage for well site 16 there, and not destroy the beauty of the park in the process. But we would need to know, we'd need that direction from the council so that we would submit an interconnection application for that specific meter, because after April 14th, there's zero chance of building solar there and having it pencil out financially. So that's what we're talking about all today is, where should we submit these interconnection applications for, and where should we not submit them for? So that's really the discussion for tonight. That's the purpose of our letter of agreement, is so that there's some sort of commitment from the city, right? That SiteLogic's going to invest our time and resources to submit these interconnection applications on your behalf prior to April 14th. The city then has the choice to move forward with any of these projects or not, right? But at least you're giving yourselves that option. If the city does back out and say, no, we don't want to build anything after we've done that work, then there is a small fee for our time and services. If the city does decide to move forward with a construction project, there is no cost for that portion of the project to the city.
$30,000, is that?
30,000, yeah.
That's the larger.
That 30,000 goes towards that.
Correct, yeah. I mean, we want to build a project for the city. It doesn't have to be all 4 sites. It could be one site. It could be a small site, so.
Today, all we're really doing is determining whether or not we're going to sign that LOA, correct?
Correct.
So if we say yes, we're doing that, and we're going to, let's just say, submit for interconnectivity by April 14th on 7 sites, but we don't know if we're going to end up using all 7. But let's say we want to just make sure that we have it, for example, whatever, let's say 4 sites.
Mm-hmm.
But then we say, hey, we looked on it further. Erling, we can't really come to an agreement on what we're going to want there. Pull Erling, and we're still going to use the other ones that we submitted for. Is that fine? Because
let me ask my boss.
No, yes, of course.
Yes, of course, it's fine.
So what I'm asking is, if we submit for multiple, does that give us more time? Because this is a 12-month build-out.
It does.
Do we still have flexibility in design? Do we have flexibility in quantity?
Well,
so if we say Erling, for example, like Erling, yes, let's submit for it. We're not going to be good with 550 panels, but we might be good with 75 panels right around the well.
So
how much of an issue is that for you guys?
Therein lies an issue. And Eddie, do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Yeah. And I think we're going to have a workshop sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
We can only change about 10%. So we can go in big, but we can't go more than 10% too big, if that makes sense.
April 14th.
After April 14th, and then it automatically goes to NEM 3.0.
Right. So we're essentially telling PG&E, like, the city intends to build a project this size, right? So PG&E is doing all their work on their back end, making sure that the grid in that area can handle the load that's being backfed into their grid. They don't allow us to change that size very much after we submit the interconnection application. So that's where the workshop will come in necessary, right? Because when we submit, it's for this size, and they give us like a 10% wiggle room, but not much more than that. So.
Do they allow us to pull it completely?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, and we have roughly 3 years to get it done, constructed and online.
And with staying in the same proper NEM program?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You want to be under contract and started within a year, but you have 3 years to finish it.
3 years to finish.
Yep.
That's good to know.
Would it be possible to put two applications in it for Erling? One for 75 panels and one for 500?
I wish. No.
They don't allow.
So we really have, and I want to be very honest and upfront, we only have one shot. So we want to be as close as we can to what we think is going to happen when we do that submittal on April 13th, for example. Otherwise, we lose our shot. Well, this is,
We're on the
I'd say
first.
the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks. So if we want to have another workshop, get the LOA going, and we'll start, as soon as the LOA is signed, we will start doing all of our analysis and getting you all sorts of options. And then we can have a workshop within the next week or two and, invite some members of the public if we need to really get this nailed down so we have some time to get those applications in. Because it does take some engineering. We have to do electrical design. We actually have to get stamped plans, everything approved prior to submitting. So that takes a couple weeks to do.
Any other questions from council? No? I just have a question. How long has how long have you guys been in business?
Since 1989, I believe.
That long?
Yeah.
Okay.
A different name. We changed names in 2018. We were IES before.
IS, okay.
IES, yeah.
Thank you.
So just kind of other item to note, I mean, different division than these folks work with, but they are the same company that Kingsburg Elementary School District uses for their solar projects, so.
Which is up against the same deadline.
Correct.
Right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I was walking the sites today.
Did SiteLogic do the senior center?
No, that was done through a different CDBG program that Peter's put together, so.
And the urgency and the rush is because of this deadline. Like
It's because of
everybody's
the
feeling right now, that's why it's feeling urgent to the residents, to council, like this just coming to us also, and it's because of that April 14th deadline.
So that decision, I think, was it December that the CUP?
It was just in December that the CPUC made that decision, so they didn't give anybody very much time.
I mean, we knew it was probably coming, but had some hope that maybe we had some more time, so. So like mentioned, like I said, the recommendation today is to have council approve the LOA so they can kind of start working on those designs, like I said, before anything gets built or any contract gets signed. Like I said, we'll bring back some renderings and some locations of what those projects are going to look like, so.
Right.
I'd like to see the savings on the parking structure or the parking lot over on 396. It's like industrial looking, it's not obstructing any view. If that might be beneficial. I'm just going to throw out, I don't like the idea of Erling Park at all. I understand the need for it, though.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea. We are so limited right now on, one of the things we thrive on is our sports that we offer our kids in town, youth sports, and we are so limited on the space. And I asked that question knowing the answer when I asked you, that field is used all of the time. It's a huge amount of green space.
It is.
Yet I understand through listening the need for that amount of panels or that amount of because of the amount of use on that well.
Yeah, so I think the initial analysis, I think was done in 21, correct? Using the 21 numbers. So I did pull the utility bills for 2022, and I think it was like 92,000. So this year there was a bump, as everybody felt in their PG&E bill. So the cost like I said, is not going to decrease. So just something else for you guys to kind of consider as well, that there's a possibility that that number just continues to rise. And like I said, that may in the future impact any water fees. I mean, those are costs that we're going to have to offset based on the revenues that we collect with the water system. So
on the flip side of that, Daniel, if we move forward and we have a huge savings, what is going to be the savings of our citizens?
So the savings is that we're going to be able to kind of maintain and control our utility costs because the use is not going down. So it's not going to trickle down. It's gone up every year. Over the last couple of years, the rates have just continued to kind of go up. So we've just been absorbing those additional costs. And so, like I said, looking into the future of what those additional costs are going to be, like I said, it is something that is of concern, which is why we kind of said, hey, let's bring this back because the numbers are just continue to grow.
To help with our citizens.
Correct.
Over the next 30 years.
Correct.
So I think it's a little bit important to touch on how we got here, because I know I'm listening to your guys' concerns, especially about the communication, and that's fair. That's why I think it's important to kind of why the city started looking at this. We give clear direction to the city that we want you to explore all options that you can to save money, to make the town better. And this has been an ongoing solar conversation for a long time. And then with this, is it the CPUC?
CPUC and NEM 2.0.
When that all came out, they threw everybody into this time crunch, which threw every vendor into a time crunch, which threw every municipality into a time crunch. So you guys are absolutely right in your concerns about there wasn't a lot of notice for anybody, including us, with this. And I just think it's important to know that they're constantly looking at these things. This is an ongoing thing, and our direction to them is find them, bring them to us. If it's not a good idea, we'll vet it out. We'll vet it financially through the financial committee, and then we'll bring it through here for more community-related concerns. So, by talking to people, I have heard a lot of why is the city doing this? Because the city should always be looking for ways to improve. So that's part of it. The communication, if we had more time, I think it would have been better. I think that's why we had people out on foot this weekend trying to educate you about it. That's kind of why we're in the time crunch. I think the other thing is from the financial thing, this was vetted through the financial stuff because it just makes sense financially. It does. It makes sense to put 550 panels right there. It doesn't mean that it's right for the town. It doesn't mean that it's right for the neighborhood. But we also have to look at it from a responsibility of the taxpayer dollars. When we're talking about $9, $10, $11 million savings over 30 years, that's a ton of money that we're entrusted to spend accurately and appropriately. And I think my opinion on this is we need to find a way to balance both. And I would really like to see a potential redesign within Erling, because we do have to offset that. $100,000 a year for a pump is a lot. That is a lot of taxpayer dollars. That's a lot more water bills going up and stuff. This particular design, no offense, it just seems a little hasty, and I understand why. The location's bad, the size is bad, doesn't meet the park aesthetics.
The level.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for what we're looking for. But we had to get something on paper, and we had to start this discussion. So I think moving forward, I think offsetting Erling is important. If we can ramp up well 13, if we can add significantly more panels at 13, and then significantly reduce the amount of panels at Erling, maybe just around the pump site, and maybe along that center fence line, possibly. It might be more aesthetically pleasing, give us a little bit of shade. We still have that natural barrier of the fence there, and pump up the numbers of the panels with the carports at 13. That would be kind of my suggestion, so that we still have a responsible amount of savings, but we're not getting all of those savings on the backs of the people that use the park. So, just one council member's opinion, but.
No, and that's been discussed with them. So like I said, our goal is, like I said, to look at all of those options and then bring those back and ultimately have the council make that decision. So
everything from here will go to a contract that we will later approve.
Correct.
Oh, it'll go to designs that you'll have to approve
Right,
before it gets to a contract,
Yeah.
and definite community input as well.
If we want other locations, do we have to add those tonight? for design? For the LOA, yeah.
We don't have it specified, the amount.
That's fine. Just have them under facility location, so we can amend that if you need to.
Okay.
Not really the cost anymore.
Right, so in the LOA, we have specified where we would be doing some discovery work and some engineering work. And right now, we have PD, well 16, 13, and Public Works. So we could amend the LOA to include other sites.
Okay.
But we would need to know rather soon from
Right.
staff which meters to identify potential projects at, such as that additional.
Yes, what Laura mentioned, yes.
And so we've done, like I said, prior to this, we did do an evaluation where we walked all the sites and looked at all, I think we gave them access to all of the city utility bills. And these were the projects that kind of made sense in terms of being, where they pay themselves back. Fire department, like sample fire station 2 doesn't have any use, like very limited usage. Same thing with fire station 1, just the space. Same thing, like we're not adding more in PD is just the limitations. The roof's not an option there, because that was a question, like why can't we put some in the roof? There's a lot of equipment up there. There's a lot of AC units up there, so it makes it prohibitive to do any additional work over at PD. So like I said, if there's one that we may have missed, like I said, we're happy to kind of talk about that and then get them to kind of look at that as well.
When could we get a workshop scheduled for specifically the Erling Park area?
How soon do we have a workshop ready for some additional design? A couple weeks?
Yeah, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, okay.
Next council meeting?
I work.
Yeah, next council meeting, I think that would be fine.
Possible. I mean, if not, we can do it different. Work on it.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more discussion, we'll get a motion to, for the LOA for solar options. I want the public to realize it's only for solar options.
So I'll make a motion to move forward with the LOA to explore these options, which is not saying we're going to put 550 panels at Erling Park.
Right.
But just an LOA saying that we want to move forward, and I want staff to be able to have a little bit of freedom. I don't know if we can make that in the motion to determine the site number. Is that a possibility? That would be my motion, is to give staff the authority to determine the quantity of sites.
As long as you're comfortable in the LOA that we don't, I mean, we're just going to explore any other options, then,
Within the next 2
we can
weeks,
do that
we'll
pretty quickly.
We'll have that number definitively. We'll sign the LOA, but staff will have the authority to give the quantity of meters we're talking. I guess that would be my motion. I don't know. Mike, figure out the right way to say that.
You're approving that LOA with the ability of staff to add or subtract additional sites.
Okay. Yeah, and
Before we move on to a second for that motion, can I ask a question? Is that okay? I'd be okay with moving on to explore that, but I want to know, like, how are we going to get the community surrounding well 16? How are we going to get the information out about workshops to them? Because I think that a key piece that it sounds like the citizens were feeling was not being part of that conversation, and I want to make sure that we are doing that as we are moving forward.
You have the addresses?
We can get the address. So I think the next step on staff plate is determining a date. That way we can get a notice out, both mail and probably get water staff out there to walk and just place a note on the door so that they're aware.
I'll make the second then for what he said.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Just for options. Okay, 6.3 is done. Back up to 6.1. Kingsburg Tri-County Healthcare District 2023 grant cycle. Staff report by Community Services Director Adam Castaneda. Presentation by Adam Castaneda.
Well, good evening again, Mayor and members of council. Anyone need a water break? We're good.
Rest your big no. We're okay.
So tonight's presentation is in relation to the Kingsburg Tri-County Healthcare District. As the last meeting in January 18th, we presented to council the county's new fiscal year and their new cycle. Their applications open in January, and then they close in May. So at the last council meeting in January, we made a presentation seeking just some general input from council on potential projects that the city would potentially go and seek for this upcoming cycle. And with that, there were 5 projects that different city departments came up with. And so tonight's presentation is just to kind of give you a view on the 5 projects that we've selected, and then leave it up to you whether you would like for the staff to continue seeking grant funding for all those 5, for a particular few, or just get your general input on the projects. So we'll start with the first one, which is the public health and playground safety updates. That is a project with an estimated grant total of $72,623. This project comes from the Community Services Department and the Kingsburg Community Services Commission. They are seeking, again, your permission to seek grant funding to add additional pour-in-place rubber surfacing at Memorial and downtown parks. And this is just for their playground areas. So the commission felt that going forward, a lot of our incoming parks will be pour-in-place rubber, and Memorial and downtown parks are the traditional softball material. And so they feel, since they're the majority used community parks located in the downtown area, they'd like to see that transition away from the softball material. Again, this material has got a life of 10 to 15 years expectancy. It would remove that bark from the playgrounds and then just have this installed. Safer, it's cleaner, residents prefer it. We've got complaints about just the old bark and getting into shoes, falling, and all that stuff. So again, this comes from the Community Services Department and from the Community Services Commission, and that's their recommendation. The second one is from the Kingsburg Police Department. Public service vehicle and officer first aid kits. In 2018, the police department sought funding from Tri-County for this particular resource for vehicles and for officers. They were granted funding in 2018, and so again, they're just seeking an additional round to get updates for all the officers and then for all public safety or public service vehicles. This would include public works vehicles, community service vehicles, and then the fire department vehicles. And this would be, again, for officers to carry individual first aid kits for themselves and then have access to first aid kits in their vehicles for the public. And then, so those are the first 2. And the last 3 are requests coming from the fire department. And Chief Perkins wasn't able to attend tonight's meeting. But he does have 3 requests that he would like for council to consider. The first one being a utility terrain vehicle or ATV vehicle for the fire department. It's a grant request total of $200,000. Again, this is just a multi-terrain vehicle used in multiple different scenarios to assist them in rescues and fire emergency services. So that's their first request. The second one being the 50% total cost coverage of 6 full-time EMS support staff or firefighter paramedics. This was, again, a grant that was submitted in 2018 for 6 full-time paramedics for the fire department. This is just a continuum of that request, so that the city would cover 50% of salaries and benefits, and then Tri-County would add the additional 50% to cover the new 6 positions, or current 6 positions. And then the last one from the fire department is just paramedic EKG and heart monitor updates. And these, again, are just updating current material that are equipment that the fire department is using to newer, more advanced, up-to-date equipment. and also be able to update the software requirements that are needed to run those on the safety vehicles. I know I ran through those relatively quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have for those. And again, staff is just seeking direction from council on the 5 proposals. If you would like for us to continue or staff to continue seeking all 5 grant requests from the county. Again, these are just the requests. Tri-County will convene in May and make their determination between us and all other public service or nonprofit agencies that are seeking funding for this round. So with that, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions from council?
A quick question on the, I thought you said on the 6 full-time EMS support staff, is that I thought you said it was a continuation of, so it's 6 that we currently have, or is it 6 new? Because I read this thinking it was 6
New positions.
I just wanted to be sure.
From my understanding, it's the current 6 that we currently have that we want to continue on with, but I don't know if I'm...
It's the existing.
Got it.
I think their original one was a 3-year agreement with us, and so they're seeking to renew that.
50% also?
Yes.
50% comes from us, 50% comes from, okay.
50% comes from Measuree, and 50% comes from them.
You have the questions? Oh, go
I
ahead.
have a question about the ATV.
Okay.
Aaron, I have not bought an ATV recently, but $200,000 seems like a lot of money for an ATV.
I believe that grant request covers the initial payment for the actual vehicle, but also the support. I have to go back and double check. I can definitely get clarification for you. But it is for the vehicle and then the support service, and I believe there's like a maintenance agreement that comes with it.
What's the support service?
For the ATV, so it's the initial purchase of the vehicle or the ATV, and then it does come with like a maintenance service just in case, and then I believe there's just additional equipment that goes with it, like the trailer.
Probably equipment.
Correct. I believe there's $72,000 of that is also for the trailer that is initiated to pull the ATV.
Oh, wow, for a trailer.
Correct.
That all sounds like a lot.
Is it something that's necessary? Like, does the sheriff?
I kind of hate speaking to that without Chief here because I think I'm going to see it differently than him, but he may have some viable reasons for that that I don't see.
Correct. And speaking to Chief Perkins, if there were a priority list for him, obviously that would be the 3rd priority. So he has ranked them for us. It is the 50% full-time staff going with the updating of his EKG and heart monitors. And this is an additional request for the 3rd proposal. This is a proposal that has been made in the past to Tri-County. So it's not a new proposal. It's just one that's been overlooked in the last couple of years. So. If that helps at all.
This request has been made to Tri-County?
Correct. In the past.
So that means that
They didn't fund it originally. Correct.
So, just so I'm completely understanding this, from the fire department, the EMS positions currently existed. The EKG heart monitors, those currently existed, so those are just being replaced. Like
Correct.
The first aid kits, okay.
Correct.
And the pour-in place, that's new. That hasn't gone before.
Correct. That would be the new addition or new project. Mm-hmm.
Adam, real fast, I have
Yep.
one question. Is there a certain number that is like a target number that the city goes after every year or would like to get?
No.
Okay.
We know in years past that Tri-County has a certain amount of funding they get every year.
Right.
But again, that's open for the entire community in their district area. The city is just one portion of that kind of goes in and relates to what their grants or related to, and then we seek funding that way. But no, there is no specific amount. But I believe last year they had about $900,000, roughly, that they allocated funding to.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I would like to, can we talk about this?
Yes, discussion, yeah.
I would just like to throw this out there that Tri-County has been very good to our fire department over the last however many years we've been doing this, very good. Our chief is very good at looking at the needs. I would hate for them to consider the all-terrain vehicle because that's something they haven't funded in the past and not maybe do the 50%. I would like to suggest that we don't move forward on the all-terrain vehicle at this point just because the 650% positions I think are more critical to our community.
I support that. You're right. That district is phenomenal, and a lot of our fire department exists because of that. I don't want to appear greedy, I'll be honest. And I hate saying that without the chief here. He may have very valid reasons for a $200,000 ATV. I just, at face value, without those reasons, I don't know that in good conscience I feel comfortable going and asking someone for that.
Any other comments on that one? Yeah. I tend to agree, Chief couldn't make it, it's unfortunate, but hopefully if we were to need an all-terrain vehicle, like Laura was saying, I know the sheriff has them. We can, just knock it down to four items. That should be no problem, I feel comfortable with that. Dave, you comfortable with that, Dave? Yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I had a conversation with the chair of the healthcare district this morning, and so I relayed the concern about us not wanting to be greedy because,
right.
I told them, they have been very good to us, as was mentioned, and that we are one of the ones that, tend to submit, but I just wanted to relay to him that, we're asking because we don't want to not ask for certain things and then not get it, right? And so, but I think Chief Perkins will be fine with your decision. We made him rank them, so he knows that the employees are first and foremost, and so he'll be entirely comfortable. And it really is a sort of, we're having this discussion, we're probably going to talk about it with the Clean California grant later. It's a strategic decision by the council as to how many grants you request, right? So. And honestly, I talked a little bit with the chairman this morning too about, what they want as a board and as a district, what kind of projects they would really like to see, and I think that there might be some more discussion about expansion of like our trails and things like that they are maybe more interested in. So I think with more feedback from them will be coming in the future too. So, but I think you're totally fine with the 4 if that's what you decide to go with.
Okay.
For Tri-County, when this goes before them for discussion, I'm assuming this is an open forum and stuff, who is there from the city to answer questions? Is that you, or is that whoever makes it?
Each department will have a representative. So historically, Community Services, myself, and then Chief Perkins or a representative from the fire would be there to answer any questions. And they have an open forum, a couple months before the cycle ends, and it gives grant requesters the opportunity to go and make a presentation to them to give them a little bit more insight on the project, and it does help. So we're able to answer any questions that they have.
From a council perspective, I can bring this up probably to end for future. I would like to consider having a liaison position from the council that is just a liaison between the two. I would like to have these discussions about what their expectations are, what they'd like to see. I would like to have somebody on council having those direct conversations with them well prior to us submitting our needs so that we can kind of come to an agreement. Especially, I think it'll just foster the relationship between us and them. With the amount of money that they're giving and how much good they've done to our town, I think that one of us could probably be a good voice for us, and it would be a consistent voice. So maybe we'll put that on the items for later.
Good idea, Brandon. Any comments from the public on this item? No? Okay. Okay, so do we want to, can I get a motion to submit the 5 proposals and we'll, excuse me, the four proposals and disregard the all-terrain vehicle? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 6.2, award of the 2023 downtown parking lot project to R.J. Berry Incorporated. Amount of $393,412. Staff report by Dave Peters, city engineer. Presentation by Dave Peters.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As part of our 2022-2023 capital improvement program, we had a project that reconstructs 3 of our downtown city parking lots, the one behind the library, the one right here adjacent to Roadhouse and Smith Street, and then also the senior center parking lot. The project included reconstruction and reconfiguration of the lots and also construction of new trash enclosure facilities. And if I can get you to bring up these, because I'll just quickly run through each one of the lots. That works. So this is the lot behind the library. Really just repaving the lot, fixing some of the broken concrete curbing in the median there, and then reconstructing the trash enclosure up in the upper left-hand corner that recently I think had a run-in with a car or something. It was an old chain link enclosure, so this will be a masonry enclosure per our standards. Can you go back to that for just 1 second? Yeah, that's okay. We've also, I just wanted to add, we also included some conduit and some pull boxes for future wired electrical vehicle chargers. We don't quite have that worked out with PG&E yet, but the infrastructure's there, so we can add that in the future. Okay, next. Thank you. So this is just an aerial photo of the existing senior center lot. You can't see a lot of the striping there, but the parking's generally 90 degrees on the north end of the lot. It's diagonal parking on the south end of the lot, and then it's a mixture of the two. You see those 4 cars in the middle. So go to the next slide. Good. So we've reconfigured the lot. We've added 90-degree parking kind of in a band all the way around the lot. We end up picking up 4 parking stalls by doing that. We're adding some landscaping in the corner, and like I said, repaving the lot. So go to the next one, please. This is the this existing parking lot. Like I said, oh, that's okay. Just north of the new Roadhouse restaurant. So Smith Street's on the right there. You can see it's all diagonal parking, 2 rows. So if you go to the next slide. So again, we've reconfigured this lot in 90-degree parking. We end up picking up, we actually create 10 extra parking stalls, but we've burned 2 of those stalls and added trash enclosures on the left side of the parking stalls. You'll see one in the north band of parking, one in the south band of parking. And the reason those aren't on the very end is PG&E has a 10-foot easement for facilities, and we can't build any permanent structures over that easement. So those stalls to the left of the trash enclosures will be signed, so there's no parking at the times when the trash enclosures are accessed for them to be dumped. We've also included a 40-foot long trash enclosure directly behind the new Roadhouse restaurant, so that will be able to handle four bins, and as well as the grease trap that they use. We've added a light on the upper left-hand part of the parking lot next to the trash enclosure. Again, this was reconfigured, so the 2 valley gutters that are there now will be consolidated and replaced with 1 valley gutter, and the 2 driver approaches will be consolidated and replaced with a single driver approach. And that little kind of hatched off area to the side, that's hatched like that for now. because it doesn't have the standard depth for a parking stall, but we're going to look and see if maybe we can make it like a motorcycle stall or a compact stall or something like that. It's also very, very close to the sidewalk, but we're going to see if maybe after we pave it and we're marking out for the striping, if there's not an opportunity to squeeze one more stall. So with the configuration of those two lots, we actually pick up 12 additional stalls in between those two stalls. So back in early February, we put the project out to bid. We received 6 responses on February 23rd. The low bid was from R.J. Berry of Selma for $393,412. We have experience working with them in the past, have good success. They're appropriately licensed and in good standing with the state of California. So we would recommend tonight that the staff award this project to R.J. Berry in the amount of $393,412, and can answer any questions.
Time frame on how long that parking lot would be closed?
Yeah, so we did. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so we did add some special language in the contract specifications. So immediately after award, we'll have a pre-construction meeting within, I believe 5 calendar days. So the idea is that the contract time for the whole project is 30 days, but we're going to have a discussion with the contractor and try to ensure that these lots are accessible for the car show and for the Swedish Festival. So if he's just not comfortable that he can get all 3 done before the car show, we might maybe save the bigger one and do that one between the car show and the Swedish Festival. So there's flexibility to do that, but yeah, he's got some pretty stringent schedule requirements in the specifications. Yeah.
Well, what kind of communication are we going to do with the businesses?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, once we have a definite schedule from the contractor, we'll be reaching out to them and notifying them and of the work and the schedule and so they can make arrangements for alternate parking.
Yeah. Dave, if I could, so they're all aware that this is coming, though. So there has been a lot of conversations with all of the property owners. In fact, the property owners and business owners have been part of helping us sort of sort the trash enclosure thing, because one of the things that we're trying to do is consolidate everyone back there, basically all have different garbage arrays, and so we're trying to clean that up, and so that has been a lot of communication that Daniel's had with them, and then also with those property owners there. So they do know that it's pending, but we will have to reach out with them once we had to wait for the bid and once we get the schedule squared away. So that will certainly be something that we communicate with them.
How far are we going to notify everybody, all businesses in downtown?
I mean, we can have that conversation. I haven't thought about that as much as outside of just the adjacent owners, but we can certainly, do a couple 100 feet radius or something like that as well. So try and give everyone a heads up on what's to be anticipated.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
I think it's great that you picked up all these parking stalls using the existing space. First of all, I mean, that's pretty amazing that you made it work, reconfigured it. When it comes to the lighting, you had mentioned there was one light pole, new additional light pole.
Yeah, there's one new one here, and then there's an existing light here, and then there's a relocated light here.
Okay.
That exists now. It'll just be moved over a few feet. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I just caution, is that enough lighting? It seems like, that's a pretty big parking area now, and there's going to be more cars, and I just worry about safety and security if there's enough lighting for how many parking cars.
we felt that it was enough. We felt that the kind of the dark part of the lot now is this area.
Right.
So the placement of that light kind of resolves that issue.
Okay. Fair enough.
Any other discussion from council? The public? Okay. So, can we get a motion, or?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 6.4, Major Revenue Fund update. Staff report by City Manager Alex Henderson. Presentation by Alex Henderson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As part of our kickoff and preparation as we're getting into the thick of our budget for the next coming year, I just want to give some background on some of our major revenues as we're anticipating for the rest of this year, and that will help shape our discussion for the upcoming year as well. So I'm going to talk most of these are our general fund revenues, but I am including the public safety tax and measure refund, so that's a separate revenue account. But the other ones, the Bradley Burn sales tax, property tax, motor vehicle license fee, the TOT, and licensing and permits are major revenue sources, particularly for our general fund, which is the largest fund that the city has. So this is just a sort of a look back as to what we were predicting, a little less than a year ago as we were with the adopted budget, the fiscal year 23 budget. So you'll see there kind of our, again, these are general fund revenue as we were estimating for this year. I'll talk a little bit about it later, but property tax and motor vehicle in lieu are basically subsets. They're both versions of property taxes. So our biggest revenue generator, is about 36.5% for our general fund is property tax related. So I'll just kind of break these down individually before we get into the actual collections to this point. So from a sales tax perspective, where you pay sales tax kind of depends upon where you are making that purchase. This is specific to Kingsburg. So in Kingsburg, you pay 8.975%, whether you're a resident or a visitor in town at point of sale. So you can see what those breakouts are individually. So for the city's collections, we collect 2%. So 1% is from that Bradley Burns. That's what every city gets in California as part of their sales tax. And then obviously we have our voter-approved public safety measure tax at 1%. Everything else is going either to the state or individual. So obviously the zoo authority is in there as well, but there are county and other items that collect sales tax. So these are the actuals to this point. So sales tax is collected in arrears. I would imagine that we will probably have our December collections within the next few days, but we do not have that yet. So right now we just have July through November. So you can kind of see that the yellow graph there shows what we're doing in fiscal year 23 as it compares to the previous 3 years. This is also the Bradley Burns, but this one includes estimates. So December through June of the rest of the year shows what we are forecasting for collections, and those figures are provided by our sales tax consultant, so Avenue Insights and Analytics, is a service that we contract with, and they provide forecasting for us, but they also do auditing. They work directly with businesses in town to make sure that they are collecting sales tax. There's oftentimes where if you have multiple businesses within the state at different locations, it may get it all gets paid to the state, but it may get misallocated back to the city. So they make sure that everything that's supposed to be coming to Kingsburg is coming to Kingsburg. So as of right now, obviously, trending upwards from the previous year. So that's a good sign and is higher than what we originally estimated as part of the budget for this year.
Question on that?
Oh, yeah, please.
Why a dip on third quarter?
Here? So third quarter here?
Yes.
So it's about, again, these are all projections. So I think we'll update these, and we update them every quarter. So I think particularly there were a lot of economists were assuming that a recession would be coming probably starting in the March timeframe. They've kind of recalculated that now. I think a lot of economists now are sort of thinking that there will still be some recession, but it'll come later in the year. So it's still, I would say, it's a little bit of a dip from last year, but relatively, higher than what we've seen previously. Obviously, you have a couple of, COVID impacted years there, but once we have the December figures, that will be a full quarter, and then they'll update those projections as well. So just jumping into the public safety sales tax, again, voter approved in 2018, is more diversified, which you'll see by the numbers. We get far more collections from Measure E, including online purchases. We get that full 1%. So we have had year-over-year growth since this was put into place, which you'll see, and obviously goes towards both our police and fire efforts. So again, similar breakdown here in terms of the actuals received year to date. Again, don't have December on, but you can see that yellow, the yellow bar on the far right is where we have collected from an actual standpoint through this year. And again, a similar chart here, which predicts what we will see for the rest of the year. So trending relatively similar to last year, which we sort of anticipated at some point this would have to cool off to a certain degree, just because it's grown exponentially. I mean, it's obviously pretty significant. When we first, I think when council first adopted the measure to go to the voters, they were hoping it would be sort of in the $1 million range in the first few years, and we're going to be approaching $3 million here pretty soon. So again, positive news, and while maybe a little less than what we got last year, still more than what we had originally budgeted for fiscal year 23. So we get a lot of questions about property taxes and kind of the amount that the city collects. So you can see here sort of the nuts and bolts behind property tax in California. A lot of those items that you see there in the middle, what the assessed value is capped at, property, when reassessment occurs upon change in ownership. A lot of that stuff is Prop 13. So obviously very well known in California, passed in the 70s, which caps that amount that it can be raised each year. And then obviously the allocation share, which I'll show in a couple slides, is split among different groups. But also our in lieu amount, which is our vehicle license fees. So everyone here owns a vehicle, gets to pay registration fees, and always has, at least since 1935 in California. In the early 2000s, there was basically a bunch of legislative changes that occurred because the state was in dire fiscal need. And so there were some legislation that came through when former Governor Schwarzenegger was in office, and basically what they call, what's well known as the triple flip, which is extremely complicated to describe for how they figured it out. But the short answer is that the VLF, or what they call the VLF swap, you can really just consider those a subset of property taxes. So again here, where does your property tax go? So the city gets 21%. This is just on that base sort of 2%. So every community is going to be a little bit different. If you open up your tax bill in Kingsburg, you're going to see bond measures and from both of the districts on there too. So that's not necessarily in this chart here because it just kind of depends upon where you live, and but this is a good base for what your base 2% rate, where that goes. And so sometimes we get questions too. If you're in the county, then you get annexed into the city, it doesn't change, your amount doesn't change. It just, what changes is where the allocation goes, right? So if county was getting the city portion there, and then there's if they get it annexed into the city, then property tax stays the same, but gets distributed differently. TOT, or transient occupancy taxes, is 12% of rent that's charged for hotels and motels. It also includes Airbnbs that we have registered in town. It's commonly known sort of as a bed tax. It used to be 8%. The Kingsburg voters in 2008 increased that to 12%. So we collect this amount quarterly. So, big players in town are Motel 6, Fairfield, and then, you've got a handful of Airbnbs, but those are really the two large ones. And then our licenses and fees, again, kind of covers a lot of areas, but business licenses is one of the big ones. And then obviously, it's dependent upon activity, but we have planning and zoning fees. If you come in for development, building permit fees, plan check fees. And again, most of those are collected to offset, what it takes staff or, sometimes consultants, whether we have city engineer, things like that have to review those. It also includes our recreation program fees currently. So a little bit of different breakdown only because, we don't get these amounts monthly. Most of them we get, property tax, so the top two ones we get what's called teeters. So we get basically 2 teeters a year. So in December and then again in May. The TOT again comes quarterly. So we've collected 6 months there. So these are, again, estimates. So most of them we've got roughly 50% of these collections. And so this is a doubling of that. Property taxes, that will fall pretty well in line. TOT as well. Probably the one that's a little bit actually estimated probably conservatively is the license, permit, and fees, just in case there is a downturn and we do see some slowing of some of those activities. But again, a little bit less than last year, but higher than what we've been trending the previous year. So we feel pretty comfortable in terms of where revenue collection has come in so far and where it's headed. So that concludes my report, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
I have a question about transient occupancy tax.
Sure.
You mentioned that the voters approved an increase from 8 to 12%. Is there a sunset on that? Is that permanent? So it's
Permanent.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that property tax slide. I think
Sure.
a lot of us, especially when we start, one I like to look at surplus.
That's
But also, we get a lot of questions about when we're building. We just want to build. We want to build because the city makes so much money on these new house property tax. I think that's what we all universally hear. I think it's a good slide to realize we get 21% of that. We don't get 100% of it like people think. I think the property tax dollars all comes to us. Seems like a little over double goes to the schools.
sure.
Other questions from council? Nope. Public have any questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Alex.
I'll stay up here for the next one if that's all right.
Right. 6.5. 2022-2023 Capital Improvement Plan Update. Presentation by City Manager Alex Henderson.
This is not good. Where's it at? Oh, yeah, there we go. I'll get to it. Okay, again, this is, as we start to prepare a little bit for the upcoming CIP, I'll just kind of go through these. I'm not going to go through them one by one, but please, if there are particular questions, I'll just highlight a few of them. A couple of them that are completed, we talked a little bit earlier. There's a couple of them in here where we've done roof repairs at City Hall, PD, and fire. So timely roof repairs, especially this year since we've had a lot of rain, and I don't think we've had any issues. So knock on wood with those repairs. So good timing for that. We do include some of our incentive programs, not necessarily a capital project necessarily, but we keep them in here just because of the amounts that we have, and all of those are in progress right now. And we do have a couple of applications for the forgivable loan program that we're reviewing at the moment. Adam and his department have just completed some software updates through Civic Rec, so allows us to do reservations, swim lessons, things like that, all be done online. So a welcome update there, along with some other software work that we're doing through the rest of the city. We are in the middle, as we talked about previously, of the sixth cycle of our multi-jurisdictional housing element updates. It's a large ticket item, about $150,000. That's the one that we're doing in conjunction with Fresno COG. It's a regional one that we're doing with several other communities in the county, requirement by the state and HCD. We have done our kickoff meeting for the organization-wide compensation study. So again, that will look at all the positions in the organization, look at wages, benefits, and everything else. So we just kicked that off this week. Also, the emergency operations plan has been well underway for several months and should have, I think we're planning to do some tabletop exercises next week, and hopefully we'll have a document to submit to council within the next month or two. We've talked a little bit about some of the sidewalk projects that have been going on. Obviously, we've completed the roundabout. We do have some spring-summer road construction work that will be done, including on 18th Avenue in a couple of locations, 22nd Avenue, which is just south of Sierra Street, are a few of the locations. We did do some at the back end of summer earlier in the year, and this will complete some of the work for this fiscal year. A handful of Measure E improvements, both from police and fire. So radio upgrades and communication upgrades for both fire and police. We've done some fence repairs at the pool, as well as a number of other locations, mostly ponding basins that were just in need. We did complete a large street striping project earlier this year throughout the community. Completed the Prop 218 for solid waste rates, mostly due to the new organics, SB 1383. That was done. And then, there's a couple other things that are obviously still in progress, including the fiber optic one. So, again, aiming to break ground on that this month. So, if there are particular items I didn't touch on and you have questions on, please let me know.
I have a question.
Sure.
Softball replacement.
Yeah.
Which park is Sunset Park? It says Heritage and Sunset Parks.
That's the tot lot on Pocket Park. Yeah.
Where at?
On Sunset. Yeah. Off the 6th and Sunset. It's a small little park.
First time I've seen Sunset
We
Park.
have an apartment called Sunset. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I didn't know it was named Sunset.
I don't know if that's an official name, but that's where it's at.
That's what it's called right now.
So
Okay.
that's what it's easy for us to know. Yeah, but that softball, that it's actually an engine. So that's what Adam was talking about earlier about potentially replacing that memorial in Downtown Park. It's actually an engineered. It's not just mulch. It's an engineered softball material that they make for parks, but they're a little bit less accessible for all the residents. Like if they have special needs.
I have a question, Alex. The fence repair at the pool,
Yes.
what was the reason to put all the slats in?
City code, I mean, it's basically that's the way it's supposed to be, so it's not flammable.
Yeah, I think it was maybe a health department requirement as well.
Okay, because I was just at Clovis West, Clovis, Buchanan for wrestling tournaments, and
They didn't have it.
none of their pools have slats in them.
Yeah.
So wondering why we're like the only one I've seen around.
Is it different if it's owned like by the city or by the district?
I don't know.
What do you think of those, Brandon?
I think it doesn't matter what I think.
I know. I'm just curious because I know your boy swims a lot. Yeah. Okay. I was just curious. Like I said, we're one of the only pools that I know that has them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was done in conjunction with the high school, so
They're on board with it. Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, move on. Or any public comment on that item? No? Okay, thank you. 6.6. Clean California Local Grant Program Discussion. Staff report by Public Works Director Daniel Galvez. Presentation by Daniel Galvez.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So here to talk about the Clean California Grant. This is the second round that's opened up. The city has previously applied for the grant. We did submit 2 applications last cycle. One was for park improvements, shade structures, and lighting at Memorial Park, Downtown Park, and Heritage Park. We also submitted an application for the Memorial Park Bandstand bandshell and bathroom renovations. So we did get some feedback on both those because they were both unsuccessful. And the city just didn't score high enough. The majority of the projects did go to disadvantaged communities. But we do have some additional information. As you may be aware, or as you should be aware, Golden State Avenue is currently being reconstructed. So a lot of the landscaping there is getting pulled out. So we pulled out a lot of the dead trees and oleanders. So in the second phase there was supposed to be some landscaping that's going on. So between the 4 organizations that are working on that project, so City of Kingsburg, City of Selma, City of Fowler, and Fresno County, we did get together to kind of talk about how we could probably take advantage, or we could take advantage of this grant cycle to be able to submit for landscaping. Specifically for Kingsburg, it would be some wayfinding signs, some lighting, some decorations along Golden State. And so having a regional project would make the application a little bit stronger. But we are here today to ask for your input and direction on if we should submit with the county or also resubmit any other projects. So happy to answer any questions.
When they look at disadvantaged communities, do they look at the whole community, or do they look at the surrounding area?
So they look at the census tract surrounding of where those tracts are. So like I said, in Kingsburg, there's not very many, but there's certain aspects and locations along Golden State that are kind of beneficial to that project. So some of the, like I said, some of the criteria for the grant is, to reduce waste or debris, public right-of-way, enhance, restore, measure, beautify, enhance public health, cultural connections, community placemaking, improvement public areas, and then, obviously advance equity for underserved communities. So having the bike path, having the lighting, having, the accessibility to be able to get from Kingsburg basically to Fowler along that bike path, like I said, is just one that's kind of attractive. But, like I said, we're here and open to submit additional applications if the council chooses to.
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to look at like Heritage Park, because you had mentioned the removing the bark in other parks and replacing it with the new softer. I believe that Heritage Park still has the bark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we did
I don't
replace
believe
it.
there's any shade there either.
No, we did have to remove the trees because it was causing issues along the fence line there. We did also repair the fence along the basin at Heritage too. So.
Right. So that's like Centennial Park is the same way. There's a lot of trees, so I wouldn't propose putting a shade there until the trees do plenty of shade there, but I think that might be a good idea to maybe take a look at Heritage Park and maybe some of the other parks that still have the bark tissue. And I'm assuming we can repurpose the bark. Is that what we do with? I would suggest.
Yeah. So we just put that in. So city manager just presented that was part of the last capital improvement projects was to replace that. So you are required to have 16 inches of that bark. So like I said, that's to kind of make it safe in those playground areas, but we would repurpose that in other locations. When we've done it before, we've used it in certain planners. So,
okay, yeah, good. That's all I have.
I have a question. So when you received notice last March that the applications were not approved and you got feedback, you had Memorial Park, Downtown Park, and Heritage Park, I think specific for that shade structure. They're listed together. Were they considered together?
Yeah, so it was one complete packet that we submitted for that. So
maybe resubmitting just for Heritage.
Okay.
With the bark and the shade structure, because I know that's been on our list for a while to get that
years.
The shade structure.
I've been pushing for that for years.
Maybe as a standalone. Also the 99 corridor. I like that idea too.
So to do both, to do the corridor in conjunction with the agencies, and then also Heritage Park shade structure and
that when you include it with Memorial and Downtown, it just widens the demographics.
Okay.
Where maybe if we can just focus in on one park at a time.
Okay.
That'd be the priority and those three listed.
Yeah. That's a
I
good idea.
concur. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay. Council reports and staff communications. 7.1, Community Service Commission. That was, Stacy. I was out of town, so Stacy filled in for me.
I filled in on that one, and we discussed they're very close at getting the for the dog park.
Oh, yeah.
Green for the dog park.
Yeah.
She had said that we should have that Friday, so I'm thinking possibly staff has that now. And then we were discussing the items for the Tri-County grant.
The grant, yeah. Okay, thank you. 7.2, Public Safety Committee. We have not met since our last meeting. 7.3, Chamber of Commerce.
Nothing to report. We meet in 2 weeks.
Okay. 7.4, Economic Development.
We have not met, nothing to report.
Thank you. 7.5, Finance Committee.
For finance, we went through the solar program that was presented today. We also went through some budget adjustments. The other thing that came up for that that's noteworthy is Kingsburg Police Department came to us to begin the discussions about potentially adding school resource officers. It's very preliminary right now, but they basically were just requesting permission to go meet with the schools to get into more financial conversations. So we're hoping for that. Seems like it'll be a good program. Chief seems to be on a good path for that, but hopefully that'll be wrapping up before the next school year.
Thank you. 7.6, Planning Commission. We're scheduled to meet next Thursday. 7.7, South Kings GSA.
We have not met, nothing to report.
Thank you. 7.8, Downtown Business Improvement District.
We meet next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, thank you. 7.9, Council of Governments.
We have met, not a lot to report from COG, other than some new seat placements. From the Rural Transit, though, they did approve the Kingsburg Resiliency Hub financials, which would be a microgrid program for the city. That they're going to be working with staff for exact locations and things, but it is a $598,000 benefit to the city. So that's a very good thing.
Thank you. 7.10, Council Quarterly Reports on other commissions. Does anybody have anything to report? Nothing to report. Okay, thank you. 7.11, Council Member Reports.
I just have one real quick one. I was fortunate enough to participate in the Roadhouse ribbon cutting ceremony.
Right.
And it was a good turnout, great event, and it's good to see that, so many businesses are, blossoming in our community. I think it's really exciting times. And I look forward to, many more of those ribbon cutting ceremonies. It was a great event.
Anybody else?
I do. I failed to mention on the chamber that Street Eats is this Friday. So it's
Okay.
at the park. The Kingsburg Street Eats will be this Friday.
Rain or shine?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is that Memorial Park?
Gotta eat, right?
Right, yeah.
Memorial Park. And then the second thing is I met with Chandra, our librarian down here at the city library, and also with the Kingsburg Elementary School District. And I have a book here for each of you. I put it next to your seats. Kingsburg does something called Kingsburg Reads One Book every year, where we read a book as a community. And it's going to start next week. There's the reading plan inside. There's also going to be posted, I believe it's on the district Facebook page, probably the library one also, where there's staff members reading every chapter. So it's to encourage families to read together. So here's the reading plan for this month. It's really the book. If you go talk to Chandra, you'll be able to feel the energy from her excitement. It's very much like a kind of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory feel, but it's based on a lot of like board games and famous books and famous authors. So she has organized, and I know City Hall is participating as Waterworks, a Monopoly game for downtown Kingsburg, using 40 different windows in downtown as each of the pieces like on a Monopoly board. And I think like she's been very strategic about it. Kids at school, including surrounding communities and other districts like Clay, all the kids will get like a playing card and get to come down. You'll see kids all downtown with their families over the next couple weeks, right as the time is ready to change. And they are going to use the Dewey Decimal System to play Monopoly. And so they'll have 5 game pieces per school. They're specific to the school colors, which they'll have their game card to write down the code, and then they'll have to go into the library. And the little ones, of course, with adult help, will go and learn how to use the Dewey Decimal System and write down titles, and then they get to turn it in. And in the book, a key is a significant piece in the book. So once they turn everything in, they will get the Kingsburg Reads One book lanyard with their special key, which gives them a raffle ticket to a huge wooden box full of board games. They get to put their name in the drawing. She has other exciting things, like there's a movie night, 2 different movie nights. There's a mystery night for teens. There's a stuffed animal sleepover where you get to 50 kids get to leave their stuffed animals there. They get in mischief, and Chandra's going to post on her Facebook, the library Facebook page. So walk downtown in the evenings over the next couple of weeks, bring out kids, grandkids, and have fun. And you don't even have to play the game. You've got your own key.
Anybody else? All I have is I was also at the ribbon cutting for Roadhouse 99, and it was nice, you know. And like you said, we should be having some more. There's some new businesses that have opened up that might have, you know, a ribbon cutting. So we'll hopefully we'll get some quicker notice.
I'll talk
this
to
time.
the chamber about that at our next meeting.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. 7.12, City Manager's Report.
Nothing to report.
What?
Okay. Future agenda items. We have none.
For future agenda,
Oh,
I
go ahead.
would like to discuss putting
Okay.
liaison with the Tri-County Healthcare District.
I'll put a liaison, yeah. Okay. We can get that on the probably next agenda. Okay, thank you. The Kingsburg City Council adjourns out of regular calendar into closed session. 9.1, conference with real estate property negotiator. So, we don't get to go home yet.